So when I routed this neck pocket, my original intention was to put maybe a 1 or 2 degree neck angle in there, because I didn't know how well I would clear the up to the saddles. I ended up routing basically to the usual depth for like a fender neck. My neck's a little thinner, so I strung it up with just one string. This is a low B string. This bass is going to be tuned B, E, A, D, or a step up in C sharp. And I had a good 1/4 inch over the fretboard with the saddle all the way down. That's not going to work, obviously. So I'm going to glue some veneer in here to reduce the depth. And I actually glued this down already, but the polyurethane prevented the glue from sticking in the tight bond, and it popped right off. So I'm going to use some epoxy. And hopefully that stays on there. I may need to make 2 pieces of veneer. I was going to put a slight angle into it, but I don't really have to if I raise it up, kind of like a Rickenbacker. Just bring the fretboard up high enough. I tried 1 piece, and that was definitely a lot better, but I want, with the saddles all the way down, I want the strings to be laying on the fretboard. So I'm going to use 2 pieces of this veneer. This is the 1/16 of an inch maple veneer that I used on the headstock. So now I'm going to mix up some epoxy that I have here, and I'm going to glue that in. Hopefully the glue's still good. Again, using the excuse that this is a prototype. Not everything worked out exactly the way I would expect, because it wasn't totally planned out. Can I get the glue to come out of here? I might not. Oh, there we go. Finally, we have ignition. Kind of the end of this tube of epoxy. Now I think I'm getting mostly the hardener. Oh, I'm never going to get enough on here. See if I can squeeze more out. You may notice my new workmate type device here, these are extremely handy to have. It's like another workbench, and it also facilitates clamping and other kinds of stuff. Okay. I think that's all the way down. I got epoxy on the body. That's not good. just a little isopropyl alcohol, which cleans up uncured epoxy. And we'll just let that sit. I don't really have to clamp it. Epoxy doesn't really need the wood glue. You have to press it in. Epoxy's okay just sitting. Alrighty for that. When we left off last time, I had decided I needed to make the neck pocket shallower to get more height over the body. When I tried one string, it was about 1/4 of an inch over the fretboard, and I put epoxy in, and I'm using the neck here as a clamping caul. And here's our first piece of maple glued into the epoxy. Move back a little bit. I'm going to put a second piece on here. This is 1/16 of an inch. That'll bring the neck up higher. I may or may not have to put an angle into it, like a wedge. I don't think I do. I'm just going to bring it up flat. But we'll see when after I get the second piece in. I could still do that. One thing I will have to do is the base of the neck is now proud of the surface of the body by the same amount as the veneer, which in this case it looks like a little over a 1/16 of an inch. So when that's all done, I'll have to, re-drill my holes and bolt the neck on, and then I'm going to use a router suspended over the body to get this flush with the body. I've done this before on my set neck instruments, which are kind of wedged in like this and glued. The only difference is this one is a bolt-on. So that'll be one of the upcoming steps. I anticipated I may have had to do this, and I was going to work a little bit of a neck angle in, and then I didn't. So I had a feeling I may have to raise this up, because I routed it about the standard depth of a Fender neck pocket, but my neck is not that thick. So it was down a little bit too low for this bridge. But that's, like I said, this is being a prototype, and it wasn't all drawn out on paper ahead of time. I'm figuring it out as I go, what works and what doesn't work. So this was a thing I anticipated, and this is what I'm doing. So the next step is I'm going to glue on another piece of veneer. That fits good. I'm going to glue this one down with Tight Bond. Now we let that sit. I guess that works. Is this running? Yes, it is. So you can see here now how much the neck is proud of the body, so I have to trim all this down flush. But now we have an adequate neck angle to meet our bridge and get the strings down nice and low. So after I glued the second veneer in the neck pocket, it may have made the neck a little too high. I had to raise the saddle up a little more than I want to. There's no problem doing that, but I like to be about half of that. So this was 2/16 of an inch pieces of veneer. They might actually measure something else, but that's what they're supposed to be. Where's my calipers? I'll actually measure it. So that brings it up 1/8 of an inch, which is probably a little more than I wanted. And let's see what they actually measure here. Yeah, it's a little more than that. So if I had thinner veneer, it probably would have been better, but I didn't. I used what I had. So I'm going to sand it down a little. I contemplated using a router, which of course would work. I'm going to try it like this. So I want to take about half of this top piece of veneer down. This is just a little sanding block I made of a offcut of poplar from a body with some 150 grit sandpaper on it. Now our action's at a very nice distance with the saddle not too high. We can come down a little, so that's a good thing. Okay, I'm gonna put the rest of the tuners on here so I can get more strings on to get the action where I want it. There's a set of hip shot ultralights that I actually scavenged off of another base of mine, because why not? I'm going to do the old ruler trick here. I'll come back to that. Well, they're not totally in a straight line, but that's okay. No one would notice. Where did that go? Here I have a transfer punch that I'm going to use as soon as I find out where I put my hammer. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning. There it is. It's always important to put your tools away where they belong when you're done using them. Not like I'm doing. I don't know why this one has a totally different screw. That's not quite the right size screwdriver, is it? That's okay. We'll do it like this. Like cavemen. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to get this on the body and get some strings on it. We'll see how the neck pocket is doing as far as the action. It looked good before. Our Our next task is to bring this end of the neck down flush with the body. And I'm going to do that with a router. So I'm going to make this little sled here. Use some double stick tape. And this one. This will bring the router up over the fretboard. That doesn't really matter. This is my old Sears router from the 80s, which I still use for certain things because it works, surprisingly. I believe that was my second router. My first was a really, really terrible Wen router. It was red. Now the Wen tools are really good. I have a Wen jointer and a planer, and I like those a lot. So I'm going to bring this down till it's flush with the body. Well, we don't have to do one full pass. It's only about 1/8 of an inch. We'll do half of that to start with. Make sure the chuck is unlocked, which it was not. Well, that's very noisy, isn't it? All right, here we go. I think the bearings are sounding a little old. And one thing I don't want to do is cut the end of the fretboard. I don't think that this is a pretty shallow bit with a bearing, but I don't think it's shallow enough. Okay, I think the bearing is riding on that. I'm going to take some measurements before I continue. Okay, I think it's just hitting. It's really hard to see. I need more light. Here's a different method. Let me set up a fence. So I'm putting some double stick tape down here. That's the wrong side of the line. In the past, on some of my other instruments, my set neck basses, the neck also extended into the body, and I had a fixture that sat on top of the body for the router to follow. But here I'm just kind of winging it. If this becomes a production instrument, I will make a fixture. Alright, looks straight. So this should let us route right up to the fretboard here without removing any wood from the fretboard end, which we started to do, and that has to come down a little tiny bit. And here we go. And we took a little tiny bit off the fretboard. Little tiny bit, not much. Didn't want to do that, but there we go. And there we go. That's a nice fit. WD-40 as a lubricant. This is a 105. Final string is going to be a 120. The set that's on there right now is a 130. This is a string guide, not an actual nut, since the base has a 0 fret. Push that slot a little this way. Let me see how they look. Mark a little blue on here so I can get an idea how deep these have to go. I may end up removing some of the top of the nut. We'll see. Here we are. So here's a little scratch. Shows how far I got to bring the notches down to, past that scratch. Let's see how this works. In the string guide, you want to be lower than the 0 fret, since that's what the string is going to be sitting on. Treble side is good, bass side has to come down a little more. Just a little more. Very cold in the shop today. It's currently about 57 degrees in here. And I think it's about 23 degrees outside. When we started this, it was about 90 degrees in here. Okay, I think that has to come down a little more. Both of them. Not quite there yet. Not quite wide enough on the bottom. Since this is not as big a file as the string is. The final set of strings for the bass is 60, 80, 100, 120. Right now there's a slightly larger set of strings. It's the bottom 4 strings of a 5-string set. Which is essentially what it's getting, only it's getting a much lighter set. Because a lot of the time it's going to be tuned up to C sharp standard. And then other times it'll be BEAD. Let's see how this does. Okay, so those are both good. You can see they're below the line. Just going to clean them up. I'm going to take some of the top off the nut. But now I have to plot out the other 2 strings. We established the top radius on a 16th inch radius block. After I've removed a lot of material from the top. Just a little hand shaping now. I originally shaped this just by hand. I wasn't really thinking about the radius of the fretboard. Now it matches the radius of the fretboard. Here's the nut with the finished slots. Now I just need to polish it up. While I was filming this, my casting supplies arrived, so next time it's back to the pickups and then some final details to get this base finished. See you then.